Peter Blute, you're the head of Young Catholic Professionals. You've also grown it from relatively small to quite extensive now. What was the secret to your success?
Oh man, starting off with the hard-hitting questions. Yeah, I think that when I look back on how I was brought up, I think a lot about how hard work was instilled in me and that kind of work ethic, that commitment to doing what you do and trying to do it well. First starting off with chores and school and now growing in the professional life here almost 15 years or so since I graduated from college. And I think that work ethic is has served me really, really well. I think also though it needed to be paired with this broader view of why we work and what end we're seeking in our work. And having grown up Catholic, I certainly have always understood that our end, or at least, yeah, I guess I could say understood. I've always, at least conceptually, understood that the goal is to get to heaven, but I don't think I really owned it in a more mature adult way until the last 10 years of my life or so. And so I think that, yeah, that hard work paired with orienting our work for the purpose of co-creating with God, the purpose of kind of sanctifying the world here has been something I've learned so profoundly as I've grown into or back into my faith, my Catholic faith, I should say. So I don't know if that's the ticket to success, the main reason, but it's certainly been pretty profound in my life uh, to have learned that and be continuing now in various leadership roles now, as the head of Young Catholic Professionals to be able to speak into that more and lead a team and now be touching the lives of tens of thousands of young professionals all over the country who participate in YCP. So uh, yeah, it's really a joy and a gift, I think, to be given that chance to influence and participate in the way that I have been.
How has YCP grown under your leadership?
Well, I've been the executive director for about 10 months, almost a year now. So much of the work was done long before that. But I've been assisting, I've been supporting our founder and our previous executive director, Jennifer, to grow the organization for 10 years now. And she's still very, very much involved, just in a new capacity now as founder and advisor, participating in driving the longer term impacts of YCP's mission, continuing to serve the organization in that new role. So, over the last year, we're especially taking a step back and thinking about 15 years into YCP. This is our 15th year as an organization, starting as a local ministry here in Dallas, Texas, and now growing into 42, essentially 40 of the largest 50 cities in the country, where we're touching the lives of young people in their 20s and 30s, single and married, who are at all stages of their faith journey and participating through work in every industry imaginable, blue collar, white collar, you name it. We've had YCP members come from those working fields. And so to be able to bring them together in a community that really supports their faith, career, and life connections is just it's so meaningful. It's so necessary. It's really life giving for so many people who are struggling with a really deep seated feeling of disconnection and loneliness in the world today, and also a lot of times just really trying to understand what does my Catholic faith mean when I go into the workplace 40, 50, 60 hours a week? Because right now I'm living two different lives, right? How do I have that kind of unity of life that we're called to? In the last year, as I mentioned, we're stepping back and saying, what is the unique space that YCP can continue to support young professionals in? And it really comes back to the core of our mission, is to help people understand their work through the lens of their faith. And that's so important because we spend so much time that if we're in the workplace and we don't really know what it has to do with our salvation, then it's not only so much wasted time, but it can actually be time that distracts us or pulls us away from that goal of getting to heaven and bringing everyone around us with us.
What would you say that YCP uniquely offers? Because there are other options, right, for young Catholic professionals.
Yeah, there certainly are a lot of options for participating in other community uh, building efforts for young Catholics. I think the unique space that YCP is really differentiated is looking at work, right? So not just helping people come together in community, but also helping them see how they can build each other up in their work, through their work. So the professional development piece, the professional networking and connections that they build through YCP, and the role models and mentors that they get through YCP, because it's not just a peer organization. You also have so many Catholic executives who have gone before you, who can now feed into you, who can be there to support you as you're coming up in your early and mid stages of your career. So I think the faith and work integration paired with the intergenerational connection that happens, and then lastly, the local and more broad national network. You put those things, those three things, you stack them together. Um, YCP is really uniquely operating in that space to support young Catholics in their 20s and 30s.
So what's the vision here? What are y'all hoping to accomplish in the next 15 years?
The next 15 years, wow. I mean, what we're seeing is really the fruit of YCP is a feeling of confidence in their Catholic faith that they didn't have before, a connectedness with other Catholics who they can now say they have strong spiritually founded friendships. And then, of course, the beautiful fruit of meeting someone, getting married, and starting a strong, faithful marriage that comes from that. But even beyond marriage and friendships, we're seeing people come together and there's these sparks that cause them to start an apostolate or a ministry together, to start an organization together, to go out and serve in their community together. Ultimately, just trying to determine how best to utilize the skills and expertise that they have to go out and serve the world, right? And so these relationships are starting. They're being catalyzed by people coming together in YCP. And so you blow that out over the next 15 years, like you said, this is going to have profound impacts on the organizations, both for profit and not for profit. It's going to impact our parishes and the people who are serving in our parishes, giving to our parishes, driving philanthropy for the Catholic Church, people who are bringing new ideas and new organizations and new connections between existing things. A lot of these people, I truly believe, are going to come out of YCP, and a generation that is being lifted up, in the faith to stay engaged or come back to their Catholic faith, and serve the secular world, right? And so I think what we will see is the kids, the children of these first 15 years of YCP members are going to be coming up with a, a beautiful kind of hopefulness and um, deep-seated belief in their faith, because they're going to be raised in families where um, the teaching of the faith is really a priority, because they're going to have come from that background, their parents preparing to give that faith to their kids. Uh, yeah, it's going to be profound, I think, when you um, look to the future and the need for strong, faithful, values-driven leaders especially the secular workplace. YCP is raising many of them up, and in the next 2 decades, those people will come into significant positions of influence that can really have an amazing impact on the organizations that they're going to be working within as well.
So there's other organizations that don't completely overlap but are related. For example, you have Cent Ventures, which is kind of like a networking group for, I think they try to focus mostly on like executives, Catholic executives or
Yeah,
founders or that sort of
Catholic
thing.
builders. Yeah,
Builders, yeah. And then you have there's this thing in DC and a couple other cities, the Leonine Forum, which is like networking for. So how does it? Are those like? Do you see those as competitors, or what, how does that relate to what y'all do?
yeah. Yeah, we know them really well. I mean, I know their founders, and we actually participate in some of the work that they do as well. What's really cool is we're actually collaborators. It's really about growing the pie and not trying to take the same group of people and cut it into smaller pieces. And if you think about YCP, we really operate as this vast net that's catching tens of thousands of young people across the country that are at very broad. I mean, like I mentioned, they're working across a lot of different spaces. Their faith is in a lot of different spaces, steps in the journey, and they're living in cities across the country. And so we have this kind of broad net to capture them. We bring them together in community. Many of them, are deeply seeking, yearning for that kind of connectedness. We're helping expose them to people who can teach them in the faith, who can teach them how to grow professionally and bring those two things together. And then from there, groups like Scent and Leonine are an amazing next step for a subset of our members, right? So people that are then saying, okay, I've received this formation through this kind of person on person formation that I've received through YCP. Now I'm ready to take that next step. And you look at it like a Scent is such a good fit for people that say, I'm actually ready to go build something, right? Or I'm already building something and I'm looking for the support to take it to the next level. That's where like we want to make that handoff to Scent because they're uniquely positioned to bring together entrepreneurs and builders and people that are trying new things both in the um, in the not-for-profit and in the for-profit space. And they're uniquely positioned with access to venture capital and the types of mentors who are also entrepreneurs. So that's a great example of a handoff that we would make to support people in their next step beyond YCP. We hope they'll still participate and hopefully come back and serve as a mentor. Leonine Forum, similarly, I mean, they're doing unbelievable work to go really, really deep in specific industries in certain cities so that they can influence culture. And so, when we have members who are ready to take that next step and really go deep on reading and discussing um, uh, Catholic social teaching and encyclicals and really understanding at a much deeper level the teachings of the church and applying them in the world, then we want them to go and apply and participate in Leonine. And we actually promote Leonine among our members as well. And we've had a number of members participate. So the collaborations are really, I think, where we see this benefit of all of us together in the professional space, building up the church through the lens of our professional lives.
So that's helpful. So you're not praying that they collapse and you're able to like take their market share.
No, I think we actually need more groups that are staying uniquely focused in areas like each of those organizations, because there's a lot of silos, I think, in um, well, I'll speak to what I have more experience in, which is the young adult space, right? There's a lot of siloed work at the parish and the diocesan level that is good work, but how do we help have these handoffs so that when people are ready to take the next step, or just when life brings them to the next step, that they know who can support them and where they can serve in that next step. And so, you think of OICP member who, like me now, with married, 3 kids, like where else do I participate, right? I mean, certainly I'm still participating in YCP in my role as the executive director, but thinking from a member's perspective, like what is that next step that I can now go and participate in, and how does YCP help expose me to all of the different things that are going on in my diocese, in my city, so that I can know where else I can be fed, right? And where else I can serve.
Yeah, it really does sound like a synergy. Um, it's so for the Virtuous Leaders audience, I think you're speaking to the abundance mindset that we don't have to be competitors. It's not a zero sum game, but that we
That's
each have
exactly
our
right.
strengths, we build off of each other, and then it helps everyone. So having that networking with those people is helpful for all of us.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I think we can be too small-minded. I mean, you talked at the top of this call together. I think before we were recording about having this magnanimity, this kind of magnanimous mindset, right? This great soul, this great heartedness, and I think a lot of that sometimes gets lost in what becomes more of the petty fighting over the small little scraps, rather than us thinking about how do we transform the world for Christ. And we're going to do that with each other, right? And not by sort of fighting over these tiny little things in the grand scheme of even each of our times here in the world.
There's a lot of territory to conquer. We need all
There
hands on
is.
deck.
Exactly. Let's focus our efforts. So,
I'd be curious to get more into from the leadership perspective. You're executive director. What are the practical skills that takes? What does your day to day look like? What are you doing to grow the organization?
yeah, practically, I support a team of 12 full-time employees. And then we, by extension, support about 750 volunteers that run these 42 cities across the country. And so a significant portion of my work is supporting people, right? And, when I think about my uh, the full-time staff that we have here, it's really supporting their development as professionals here at YCP, professional development, spiritual development, um, creating or continuing to create a space here where you can work, but also get married and have a family and still be able to support your family while working here in all the ways that we need to be called to. And, a lot of it is supporting my teammates to go out and really execute on the big plans that we have every year. Of course, a significant amount of my time is relationship development around fundraising. As a not-for-profit, about three-quarters of our revenue comes from really, really generous benefactors that contribute to ICP's future through donations. And so a lot of it is that donor cultivation, right? That invitation for them to participate in new ways with YCP. Um, and so, yeah, it's a lot of work to galvanize people around the plans and the vision that we have, and um, to have them really, like, when I think out to these hundreds of volunteers, like, how do we help capture all the creativity that they have and all the desire that they have to help build this and really to bring their unique skill set to growing YCP, because it takes much more than a handful of full-time staff to help um, continue to build an organization of this size. So it's extremely, extremely varied. I come from a background in marketing before I came to YCP, and I've spent a lot of my time here in operations. And so pairing that with all of the people side, the kind of sales fundraising type role, it all comes together in the executive director position.
Well, we graduated together from University of Dallas. I recently interviewed President Jonathan Sanford. It's a liberal arts school, so it doesn't explicitly train you to be an executive director of uh, an organization. How does the UD education, how did that prepare you or not prepare you for what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think it certainly prepares you. I mean, it prepares you for almost anything in life if you think about the root causes or the fundamentals that you're cultivating when you're at UD. I think a large part of my role now is to learn to ask good questions, and through that to support people to problem solve. And at UD, we ask a lot of questions. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're uh, sometimes they're uh, well, yeah, it's a funny atmosphere, isn't it? Where we've learned to question so many different things. But I think it's a valuable skill is to be able to ask good questions. Almost, I really haven't met anyone who doesn't whose work or whose life wouldn't benefit from being able to get to the root of things, right? And questions are a way to help bring to light the needs that people have, right? I mean, certainly through your work, right? You probably mostly ask questions as a psychologist, not give people the answers from the moment they start talking. And so I think UD really helped me to cultivate that and think about getting to the fundamentals, to the root of things. And yeah, I use that all the time. And then certainly, as an English major, but of course, anyone who goes through UD takes the core, those first 2 years of the curriculum, the core curriculum, and I think just learning to communicate, especially the ability to write down your argument in a compelling and succinct way, I think has served me really well. I mean, I don't get to always do it in that practical or that structured of a way now, but just the ability to organize your thoughts, I think is a huge asset that University of Dallas graduates have and can continue to cultivate it. Yeah, I was actually on campus. I spoke to the students just, I guess that was just last week, and I was encouraging them to really take these skills that they're starting to develop at UD, but don't stop. Don't leave UD and think you've got this figured out. Like these are lifelong commitments to learning that we have. But you're given some of the inklings of it, the starting points for that that can be cultivated. Yeah, and those are things I look for in new hires as well for people that we bring onto the team here. Um, so yeah, UD had a really profound effect on me. Um, those are a couple of ways.
Oh, what a great testimony to the liberal arts education. What are you reading now?
Gosh, what am I reading now? Not a ton, because of between my work and then my kids when I get home, there's not a lot of time that I've carved out for reading. Um, I read a book recently on network effects, which was really, really interesting, by a guy who was involved in Uber in the early years, and just talking about what it takes to reach kind of a tipping point in a network. You know, you think about Uber and bringing together the marketplace of the riders and the drivers, and so we've been thinking a lot about that with YCP and applying it. You know, we've got the there's a couple ways you could think of it. We've got the employers and the talent base through ICP. We've got the mentors and the members, right? These are just the similar groups of people we're naming in different ways, but we are ultimately bringing people together in a network. So, yeah, it's just really interesting to see how they thought about that in the earliest days of Uber and how small you had to think about a network before it reached a certain density that it was self-perpetuating.
What do you mean how small you have to think about a network?
Well, I'll give you an example from the book, right? So they talk about Uber in the early days, and they would be in San Francisco or in New York, you know, some of these largest cities in the country. And you'd think they start in a city. Uber starts in a city, but they don't. They start on a certain corner at a subway stop at 5 p.m. on Fridays, right? And they have a whole team of people just driving uh, traffic from drivers coming to pick people up, and then people using the app, users participating who needed rides. And they would just have this entire team of people who would rally around this one time in this one geographic space because you had to drive enough people to use the app in that space, and it required a certain density of both sides of the marketplace. And so uh, part of one of the takeaways from this book is that you want to find your the uh, forget what he calls it, the nuclear, I'm going to forget the phrase now, the nuclear network. It's like, what is the smallest form of your network that's dense enough to
Mm.
then start the flywheel going that it continues going on its own, right? And so after that, they would go conquer another corner at another subway stop, until they started to build that up into a city. And it looks like Uber just takes over cities when they were building and when they were starting, but that really wasn't the case. It was a very calculated effort to go from one geographic point to another and build up these densities. And so, I mean, there's huge implications as we think about parish life or church life, just the Catholic Church in general. We think about YCP and us operating in cities across the country and those all coming together in one national network. So it's interesting to take those learnings from um, the for-profit world and start to apply some of the common threads in the not-for-profit world.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So if you're looking to start in another city, what that would look like is maybe identifying a parish that has the most young professional life already and then focusing there and then building it from there.
Yeah, that's an example. Yeah, or one thing that we're building right now is a talent marketplace for our young members to connect with values aligned companies. And so originally we were like, well, let's launch this across the 42 cities that we have. We call it the Work Well Network is what we're calling this new product that we're bringing to our audience. And we said, let's bring Work Well to all the cities where we operate. And then we read this book and we were like, you know what, maybe we should really try this out in a certain marketplace, a smaller marketplace, work out the kinks, get a density of employers and our talent, our members connected with each other, make sure there's value and usage, their adoption, and then start to roll this out regionally. So right now we're launching this in North Texas because that's a market where we know a lot of employers. We have a lot of our deepest roots here since YCP was started here, and yeah. So I mean, we took that learning and we kind of applied it to adjusting our strategy a little bit for growing this marketplace.
Yeah. That's okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I recently interviewed the founder of the Catholic Business Directory, which sounds like it's doing something similar. So maybe we talk about that and connect you with that if it's helpful.
Yeah.
Do you have any last thoughts for our audience?
Well, at the end of the day, I think one of the things I've learned in the last 10 years is to stay close to St. Joseph, and we're right here on the cusp 2 days from now of one of his two wonderful feast days on March 19th. The feast day more oriented towards him as husband of Mary. And he's our patron saint under the title of St. Joseph the Worker, which is his second feast day on May 1st. And so I would just really encourage people to go to Joseph if they don't yet have a relationship with him as intercessor. He's had a powerful, really a profound impact on my life. And I think it's a wonderful starting place, especially for people like me who like to talk a lot. St. Joseph gives us a kind of silence and a steadfastness that comes from trusting God that is a good balance in my life. So go to Joseph.
Beautiful. And you have a great painting behind you there of the Holy Family, including St. Joseph.
Isn't that cool? What I
Yeah,
love
that's
about
really
this one
nice.
is, you have paintings of the Holy Family and you have paintings of St. Joseph working. And sometimes it's Joseph and Jesus working. Sometimes Mary is there, but I haven't seen many of those. But here you get the Holy Family, Jesus interacting with both of his parents, and they're working at the same time. And so I think it's just a beautiful testament to the call we have to live an integrated life and to be both, father and husband and uh, employer and friend, all in one. So it's an inspiration for me every day.
Beautiful. Keep working,
Yeah.
Peter.
Well, yeah. Thank you for the invitation. This has been great.